Okay, let me start this off, by the way, real quick before, let me point this out first off. I'm dating myself a little bit.
There you go.
Yes. Got this jersey in 1997, John McClain, my favorite guy, and they suddenly traded him for Doug Bodger back in the day. You guys go back to Seton Hall for a quick second. That's perfectly fine. But looking at the season that you're having right now, are you surprised by it at all?
Very much so.
What's that?
Yeah, no, very, very much so. I thought, honestly, over the summer and going into the preseason, by the way, Devils won every game, as you know, Scott. It tells you what preseason is in terms of an indicator of future success. And they look great doing it. But I did think that there would be a step back simply because they had their best season ever, most points ever. Even Jack Hughes said that, can we reasonably expect the team to repeat that performance or exceed that? And, the answer really was no. I thought they would miss Graves. I thought they would miss Damon Severson. I think those two guys gave them a veteran presence on the blue line. And there were so many players who had, I don't know if they were career years. It may turn out that Jack will break the 100-point barrier, Jack Hughes. But he had 99 points last year. Nico Hischier had 80, and Jesper Bratt had 73, and Dougie Hamilton had a great year, and Vitek Vanacek won 33 games in goal, and they had very few injuries of any significance, and on and on and on and on. Dawson Mercer has 27 goals. So was that going to be duplicated? So there was a perfect storm last year. I thought there'd be a step back. Did I think they would be fighting for their lives and truthfully not likely to make the playoffs? No. I thought they would be a team that would be in, but not at the top of the division or the top of the Eastern Conference. So I have been very surprised. There are a lot of reasons, I think, not achieving last year's output, injuries, etc., youth on defense, goaltending not living up to what we thought. Has all conspired to put the Devils in this position where
injuries as well.
No. I mean, listen, Jack Hughes has missed 16 games. Nico Hischier was out for a host. Dougie Hamilton's been out since, early in the season. Yeah. And so that's an awful lot. Siegenthaler's been banged up. He's hurt again. So, it's just been a bad year. I don't think it's a situation where, you make wholesale changes. You don't have to overhaul this team. This is not a rebuild per se. It is a reconfigure some positions, and it's just kind of put this year out of your mind and go on. There's a lot of good pieces there. I think they'll be better off for it. I think, Hughes and Hischier, both Hugheses, Nemitz, I mean, everybody will be better for going through it because they'll realize, last year everything came easy. This is a hard league and you got to work hard at it, which is not to suggest that they don't work hard, but there's another level that they have to get to. And, it's been hard, but I think they'll be better for it at the end. So I'm not anticipating major changes, but I would suspect that there'll be a number, but the core is there. And I think things are going to be good moving forward.
And I think last year gave them a taste too.
I'm sorry, say it again, Scott.
I was going to say last year gave them a taste of what it's like to have a playoff win. Obviously, Game 7 against the Rangers, you can't really get, much more dramatic than that. Save, Henrique in 2012. But it's one of those things that you look at that squad, you look at that, and you see this year, and like you said, it's a growing year. I mean, Jack is 22 at this point. Luke's 19. I mean, Luke can't even drink. So many of these kids in this squad are just so absolutely young that it's a good learning experience. It stinks to go through, but it helps. For me, I do a lot of work with New York City Football Club, which is also an extremely young squad. By the way, Joe Tollison says hi.
Please tell Joe hi. Hey, back.
I will pass that on next time I see him, promise. And it's the same kind of thing where you have to go through the learning curves to come out better on the back end. I'm disappointed a little bit that Lindy got the knife got the cut that fast, but I'm not surprised in today's hockey world. I mean, let me know your thoughts on this. Do you find that it is a less patient league now than it would have been, say, 10 years ago from a managerial standpoint?
Hockey's always had the quick hook compared to some other sports. That's changed a little bit because coaches now make a lot more money and it's a financial decision as much. I think teams are anxious for success and immediate success because so much of the marketing plan results in ticket sales and so on and so forth. And if you fall flat, now you've got to compete financially, trying to pay salaries. And if the intake is not good enough, then you've got to cut there. Then you get into this vicious cycle of not putting money into the players and then not getting enough out of them. And next thing you know, you're not selling a lot of tickets. So, yeah, I think there's a level of impatience that has increased throughout society, and the NHL is no different. I do say this about Lindy, and I do think he got a raw deal from this standpoint. I don't know, given the circumstances, that there would have been much more any coach could have done. Again, we went through them, the injuries, the youth, etc. That being said, coming off that trip where, again, their playoff hopes took a hit and they had lost to Anaheim, and you look back and you go, wow, lost twice to Anaheim. I don't think ownership, and certainly Tom Fitzgerald, out of respect to Lindy, we're not going to put him behind the bench. Two reasons. One, you have to say something to your fan base and to your team that where we're at is not acceptable. And I do believe that if we did not make the playoffs under Lindy, even if he remained as coach through the year, I don't know that he would have come back, despite the legitimate reasons why you might want to bring him back. I mean, last year
they just gave him a big extension too.
Yeah, and they gave him an extension. And financial decisions are always a part of how you proceed. Yeah. That being said, I don't think they wanted to put him behind that bench. The fan base was angry. I think if they got off to a bad start, penalty, not scoring on the penalty kill, falling behind, which has been a problem this year, the boos would have been resounding throughout the building. And I don't think they wanted to make a good man have to stand there with his hands in his pockets behind the bench or arms crossed across his chest and hear that. That would not have been fair. And I don't think the fan base would have given him much more leeway if that one game didn't get off to a good start. So I think they just said, look, we're likely to pull the cord at the end of the year anyway, and why subject him to that punishment? That's just my take. No one's told me that inside, but you just had a feel.
Makes sense.
You just had a feel when we left the Rock after arriving home from LA that was going to be Lindy's last game. At least I did.
Wow. So,
because there's still, as much as it's a business and there's a hard line. And listen, you trade guys, you fire guys, and you have to have a cold heart at times.
I mean, Lou used to change coaches like changing underwear. Was the joke
and also remember, this was Tom Fitzgerald's first hire, and it turns out it's his first fire as a coach, right? So that's not easy to do. There is a human element there, and I think there is a great deal of respect for what Lindy did with this team. I think it just was probably time for a change, and they weren't going to let it go any longer.
This is the part that I think is hard for the fan base. You understand this. I know 100% you will. But when you build a rapport and a connection, and obviously you're in the press conferences with them, you chat with them, you see the human element of it. When you have something like that, there is a greater loss, I think, for us on our side than it would be for the fan base in this case, because you lose the human too.
Yeah, I mean, I miss being able to speak with Lindy. He's warm-hearted. He's funny. You don't always see that. I think the example I would use, and you got it more on a regular basis, seeing him every day. But last year after the fire Lindy chants early, then the sorry Lindy chants, and he said, "Well, hey, listen, we'll have to go. Me and the fan base will have to go out for some beers, right?" And that's kind of the way he is. So yeah, you do miss that. Suddenly, there's not that contact that you had all the time. He and I are not going to be lifelong friends the rest of the way. That's just not what the relationship is. But you do miss seeing him all the time. It's good to get to know Travis Green on a different basis. But yeah, that's part of the loss. Players do get traded. Players do retire. And after a while, you kind of get used to it. But there still is that sense of it's different. There's a little bit of a hole. John Tortorella famously has gotten into it with reporters. Bobby Valentine could be very caustic in his comments to the reporters. And, I've seen reporters then privately go back. I mean, not so much, there will be that exchange in that public forum, but, privately or when the lights are off, and I've seen guys scream at each other, and it's an intense business, and livelihoods are at stake, right? And if you're losing a game or if you just lost a game, if you're a competitor, it's kind of hard to take the big. I'm not defending. That's their job. They're being paid a lot of money to be the coach or the manager, and it comes with the territory. But you can see where nerves get frayed a little bit as you've lost the sixth or seventh straight game, and the fans are breathing down your neck, and the GM has got the hatchet ready to go to let you go, and that's not an easy circumstance. Doesn't defend it, but I've seen it.
So what do you see for the Devils the rest of the way? Where does yes, there's still a bit of a playoff push, but not likely. So where do the Devils go from here and into the offseason?
Yeah, I think that not play out the string. I'm interested to see what Jake Allen can do the rest of the way. So far, the results have been pretty good. You can see a guy who's got NHL experience versus some of the younger guys who are still trying to find their way. I want to see what Kaapo Kähkönen can do. He doesn't appear to be in the Devils' future. Tom Fitzgerald seemed to indicate that it was more to get rid of Vitek Vanecek's salary that the trade to San Jose was made. But let's see what he can do. And then, other than that, just play. It's kind of trite, right? Play for pride, but just don't get blown out in these last 14 games. Or 15 games. It's very hard. They know they're not likely to make the playoffs. Let's face it. The Devils have won 2 straight games twice in calendar year 2024. That's it. Early in January and in the middle of February. They've never been able to get traction this year. They've never won more than 3 straight. So to think that they can make this improbable run, is really stretching the bounds of imagination. So what I'd like to see is nobody get hurt the rest of the way. I'd like to see them continue to play hard, win some games at home to reward the fans who have been so loyal and have pay a lot of money to come out and at least give them something to cheer about. I think it would be nice to beat the Rangers. That would be a nice way to end.
Rangers go out round 1, yes.
Right. I mean, unfortunately, there have been some difficult games against New York this year. That's for sure. The last one, not too bad, 3-1, but the first 2 at the Rock, not great. I don't think we'll see anybody called up from the minors. I'm curious to see what they will do now in the offseason, right? Whether Travis Green is given the job. I don't know if that will happen. Tom indicated in his news conference announcing Lindy's firing and the elevation of Travis to the interim head coaching position that, something to the effect of like, you never know what will happen over the summer, who might shake out around the National Hockey League. And I think that's a wise strategy. There are some veteran coaches who might pop off the tree. Everyone's talking about Mike Sullivan in Pittsburgh. And you mentioned JD, the extension to Lindy earlier in the year. Well, it was, I guess, last year that Sully signed an extension. So he's got a lot of money coming his way, but Pittsburgh is on the downturn, and might they be looking to make some changes there and look beyond the end of or past the end of Sidney Crosby's career? So maybe he'd be available. So I think it'll be interesting to see what happens there. They absolutely need to find a veteran defenseman, a guy that's been around. They don't have to get a guy who's a 70-point scorer. They don't need that. They just need a solid, reliable veteran defenseman. And let's explore the goaltending market, see what's out there. Fitzy has said he's going to go big game hunting. Does that mean he's going to revisit the Markstrom deal with Calgary? Perhaps. Is he going to go back and check with Barry Trotz to see what's up in Nashville for UC Saros? That's a possibility. Linus Ullmark might shake loose from Boston. Who knows what's going to happen there? But I do know he cannot, in my opinion, and I think he believes it too, he cannot go into this next season with even Jake Allen as a veteran and an untested, relatively so, young goalie. He has to have 2 veterans in case one gets hurt, share the load and take advantage of their experience. But if one gets hurt, he has another veteran that he can call on. I don't think he can get caught with one veteran like Allen and a Nico Dawes and or an Akira Schmid and say, okay, now Nico, you take the reins. I don't think that's a recipe for success. I think he knows that, and I think that there'll be another goalie coming, which for Devils fans like you, Scott, I mean, JT, you know it, right? Yeah. You know that's what's going to happen. He's going to get a veteran guy, whether it's the high end of the market or someone like a Jake Allen who's got some stripes and has been around. It'll be a veteran tandem back there for sure.
Well, we've been spoiled for 20 years with Marty.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of it.
Yeah.
I think we're just so used to, I mean, there was an entire generation of fans who never knew anything but Marty Brodeur.
Yeah.
So, when he left, and obviously that was part of it, the age and everything, we've been in this weird flux all the way through, Schneider, and then obviously all the way, even Kincaid in 2018.
Don't get to the playoffs without him, but he's not the guy, right?
Yeah.
It's not the same.
Like a revolving door kind of thing there. So, yeah, I think every fan, every Devils fan is okay with, don't worry about the offense, focus on the defense, focus on the back end, get a defensive defenseman type, a Kenny Danico of the era, who's not going to bring up a lot of points, probably never score, but shores up the back end big time. That old school, the Scots in the background kind of thing. That kind of thing, I think Devils fans will be perfectly fine with that.
Yeah, and I think they tried that to a degree, but I think there'll be a bigger, stronger effort. Like I think they thought Colin Miller could bring a little bit of that. Mm-hmm. I don't think they expected Brendan Smith to play the role that he has, but Miller got hurt, and he just never got untracked, and then ultimately got traded. But someone with a little more experience than that, perhaps, but someone maybe two guys along that line, right, just to support that younger D. Mm-hmm. Provide a little competition, provide a little cushion in case of injury. If they straighten the defensive side of things, I think the goaltenders will look better because there have been so many breakdowns. But I think that those two are important. There'll be some tinkering in other areas, finding fourth liners, et cetera, and things like that. But I think offensively we can score enough. It's keeping the puck out of the back of the net that will be the focus.